You know what's more terrifying than a monster who can kill you with a single touch? A monster who learns to feel love. But here's the real question that kept me up at night. What happens when the strongest being in existence gets absolutely destroyed by a blind girl playing board games? This isn't just another villain story. This is about Meruem from Hunter x Hunter, and trust me, it's about to get wild. Let's talk about first impressions, because holy hell, what an entrance. Imagine being so impatient to be born that you literally eat your way out of your mother. Not exactly son of the year material, right? But that's Meruem for you. Born perfect, born powerful, and born with absolutely zero chill. This dude's first act after birth wasn't crying or looking for milk. It was straight up executing one of his loyal soldiers for talking out of turn. Talk about workplace toxicity. But here's where it gets interesting. Most anime villains are either muscleheads who punch really hard or 5,000 IQ masterminds playing 4D chess. Meruem? He's both. And that's what makes him absolutely terrifying. He's not just stronger than everyone else, he's smarter too. When he says he doesn't need to learn the names of ants, he's not being edgy. He's stating facts. Imagine being so confident in your superiority that remembering names feels like a waste of brain space. That's not pride. That's straight up mathematical certainty. Speaking of mathematical certainty, let me tell you about the moment our perfect being got his ego checked harder than a rookie hunter facing Hisoka. Enter Komugi, a blind girl who's about to teach the most powerful being in existence that he actually sucks at something. And not just a little bit, we're talking complete and utter demolition at a board game called Gungi. Now, picture this. You're the ultimate life form, designed to be superior in every possible way. You've never lost at anything in your life. Then some random human girl shows up and absolutely destroys you at a game. Not once, not twice, but every single time. That's not just taking an L. That's having your entire worldview drop-kicked into oblivion. The beautiful irony? Meruem can't just solve this problem by getting stronger or throwing a tantrum, though he probably wanted to. All his overwhelming power, all his superior genetics, all his perfect evolution, completely useless against a blind girl who's just really good at moving pieces on a board. It's like bringing a nuclear weapon to a chess match. Impressive, but completely missing the point. But here's where things get really interesting. Instead of doing what any self-respecting villain would do, like destroying the game or the player, Meruem does something completely unexpected. He gets curious. And not in that creepy, I want to dissect you to understand your power way that anime villains love so much. No. This dude starts genuinely wanting to understand how Komugi thinks, how she plays, why she's so devoted to this game. It's like watching the school bully discover poetry and suddenly start questioning his life choices. And this is where Meruem's story goes from interesting to absolutely mind-blowing. You see, every time Komugi beats him, something weird happens. Our perfect being starts becoming more human. It's like each loss chips away at his I am perfection armor, revealing something nobody expected to find underneath. Not even Meruem himself. Think about it. This is a guy who was literally born yesterday. Okay, maybe a few days ago. Thinking he knew everything about strength and superiority. Then suddenly he's staying up all night. Not to plot world domination, but to figure out how to beat someone at a board game. It's like watching the final boss of a video game get addicted to Tetris instead of destroying the world. Except it's not just about the game anymore. It's about Komugi herself. Here's the moment that hit me like a truck. When Meruem realizes he'd rather lose forever than win by making Komugi play worse. Let that sink in. The being created to be perfect, to dominate everything, basically goes, you know what? Perfection is overrated. I'd rather hang out with this human who keeps destroying me at Gungi. That's not character development, that's character demolition and reconstruction from the ground up. The real kicker? While everyone's worried about Meruem becoming the perfect monster, He's busy discovering that maybe, just maybe, being a monster isn't all it's cracked up to be. He starts doing these tiny human things, asking Komugi's name, worrying about her health, wanting to understand her perspective. It's like watching the Terminator discover feelings, except somehow even more profound because Meruem never had any programming to override. This is all him, choosing to change. Now here comes the part that makes Meruem's story not just great, but absolutely devastating. Remember how I said a monster learning to love is more terrifying than a monster who can kill you? Well, buckle up, because this is where that hits home harder than a Big Bang impact to the face. Just when Meruem finally figures out what really matters, not power, not perfection, but the simple joy of playing board games with someone who sees him as just another player, that's when fate decides to pull the ultimate gotcha. The poor man's rose poison isn't just some random weapon that takes him out. It's the universe's darkest punchline. The perfect being who could tank pretty much anything gets taken down by human ingenuity. But here's the real gut punch. By the time it happens, Meruem couldn't care less about who won or lost the larger battle. You want to know the most messed up part? In his final moments, Meruem, the being born to rule the world through fear and power, just wants to play Gungi with Komugi. That's it. No grand speeches about revenge, no final boss transformation. Just a guy who finally figured out what matters, right before losing it all. When he says, "I was born to experience the joy of this moment," he's not being poetic. He's having the most honest realization of his life, right before it ends. The dark truth isn't that Meruem died, or even how he died. It's that the perfect being's greatest achievement was learning to be imperfect. His ultimate evolution wasn't becoming stronger, it was becoming vulnerable. In the end, the scariest thing about Meruem wasn't his power to kill with a touch. It was his capacity to love so deeply that he chose to die as a flawed human rather than live as a perfect monster. And that's what keeps me up at night about Meruem's story. Not the question of whether humanity could have defeated him, but whether humanity helped him defeat himself in the most beautiful way possible. Because in the end, the strongest move in his game wasn't about power at all. It was about choosing to be weak with someone else, rather than being perfect alone. So what do you think? Was Meruem's evolution from monster to human a victory or a tragedy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is the kind of story that hits different for everyone. And remember, sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones who want to kill you, but the ones who make you question everything you thought you knew about monsters in the first place.